Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews Saturday Conversation Show, an interview series where I talk to entertainment personalities, content creators, and filmmakers about their work and love of film. Today's guest is Oliver Harper, the man behind the Oliver Harper Retrospectives and Reviews YouTube channel, which he delves into classic genre films through in-depth reviews and audio commentaries. Oliver's deep dives into genre classics has also led to feature documentary filmmaking, with Oliver's next film, The Untold Story of No Retreat, No Surrender, currently available as a pre-sale for the Blu-ray that releases on January 24 of 2026. You can go to returnofclassics.com to put your pre-order now. I've done so already. Any red-blooded, heart-pumping wannabe martial artist out there who has Bruce Lee as their majestic sensei should do so as well, because No Retreat, No Surrender is a classic. Next year's the 40th anniversary, so just in time for this documentary to come out. And I'm glad to say that Mr. Oliver Harper joins me right now. Oliver, how are you?
I'm very good, Matthew. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm very happy to be able to talk to you. I was just saying off air before how I'm just such a big fan of your reviews and retrospectives, and just the movies that you cover. Because the movies that you cover are the movies that I love, I still love, but they're more than anything else than the movies I kind of grown up with. If wasn't for those films, I wouldn't be where I am right now, watching all these other, what have you, your Scorseses and stuff. All starts off with all the Rockies and all the Stallones and the Schwarzeneggers and Van Dams. That's where it started with me, and I imagine it'd be the same with you. I just want to talk about. I always like to start these conversations talking about kind of like the origin story behind, YouTube content creators. About what
Hmm.
try to delve into ways that you love and what we love to do, what we do. So I'm just really curious. When was the kind of first exposure you had to films, like the films that you're covering now? Was the first time you kind of watched those kind of films, those action films, and that kind of hooked you into that world to the point where now, like, how many years later, you're doing these like retrospectives and commentaries on them?
Well, because I grew up in the 80s, like yourself, I watched a lot of movies on VHS, rented movies, taped movies.
Yeah.
Um, Many people who are familiar with my channel, I was, still am a bit obsessed with the Superman movies. Um, and getting into things like action, it was because majority of the action movies that you wanted to see were kind of 15 rated or 18 rated in the UK, so they're slightly out of reach. So you'd have to sort of wait late at night to sort of watch them, or get an older person to rent something for you. My dad was quite lenient at that point. He wouldn't let me watch things like RoboCop or Aliens at a young age, so I had to sneakily watch something like Robocop, which kind of terrified me at the first
Mm.
15 minutes where Peter Weller's blown apart.
Yeah.
It's still traumatizing now when you see it. And it's
Yeah.
also, other films, that kind of were aimed at a family audience like Jaws. That, I saw at a very young age, and it's still, there's the scene where he gets eaten by the shark at the end. I find it really difficult to watch. So in terms of action movies, Van Damme was always a big thing for me at a young age because you know from like for probably about 5 to 8, you start watching movies on a sort of frequent basis, but you're not really kind of self-aware what's around you and what's popular and what's kind of everyone's talking about. You're just there in your own little world, and that little world was kind of Superman, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Ghostbusters.
Right.
And of that age, I was playing a lot of action figures, so kind of I liked action figures that were licensed from a movie because that was it. That was like the extension of my enjoyment was watching a movie and then playing with the toys. Um, so seeing things like, you know, action movies where Van Damme had sort of come onto the stage at the sort of early 90s. Arnold was around, obviously Stallone. The Terminator 2 was a big deal
Yeah.
back in the early 90s because it had the toys of the video game, so that kind of that gave you that window to see the film, because a lot of the time, because these older movies, it's movies that are aimed at an older audience, sorry, you've got to get into them through video games because they'll make a video game based on a movie, and also the video game would be a bit rubbish, so that would, but you'd still kind of enjoy it because it was based on the movie, so that'd be your gateway into the film, and you watch it and go, wow, the film's amazing. And then yeah, so that became my sort of obsession of kind of collecting action movies. And the Van Damme films were generally a lot more affordable because
Hmm.
by that point, you know, he had a 5 or 6 films out at that point, and you can get them for like £5 each. So that started my craze of obsessing over action movies and seeing Van Damme, noticing some of the editing styles in his movies, which they refer to as the double impact, where one kick would equal about 3 or 4 kicks, you know.
Yeah.
So we always find that quite amusing. But as a, you know, a 10 or 12-year old, you're always quite impressionable and thought, wow, that looks amazing. And, you know, that's how I sort of discovered as well along the way that No Retreat, No Surrender, which we'll discuss a bit later, but that sort of falls into my collecting habits of Van Damme films. And sort of continuing on with that. And but it was a kind of a weird thing, right? I never saw myself at that age kind of thinking, oh, I want to potentially discuss movies at an older age. It was very much like I was all about watching movies but playing video games, and video games was the kind of thing I wanted to do, but didn't realize you had to be some sort of a sort of good at programming to do that, and maths was not my forte.
So when does that kind of itch, when does that kind of fascination begins about the technicalities of film for you? Because I know you do lots of editing. You've done editing for a very long time now. You just mentioned
Mm.
that kind of like, the double impact, Van Damme double whammy he loves to do in his scenes, which I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I tried to attempt many times, as well as the Dim Mac from Bloodsport to the laughter of my older brother, who'd rent all these movies for me, by the way. But what was it? What were those movies what was that time when you actually said to yourself, I think I'd like to kind of, learn a little more about the mechanics of movie making.
Once I'd finished college, so that was around 16 years old, I didn't know really what I wanted to do, but I saw at the local sort of sixth form college where you go from 16 to 18, they were doing media studies, and I thought that would be a kind of an interesting subject because
Mm.
I wanted to do art, but I was never good with painting. I was always good at sketching and drawing, with very good with a biro. I could always copy things really well.
Yeah.
Um, but that passion had kind of eroded, and I was kind of like, oh, let's kind of go into kind of shooting kind of short movies and stuff like that. I don't know where that sort of the pinpoint of me wanting to do that, because I know, as mentioned earlier, I was a big fan of Superman films, and I love to learn about how those things were made. Because for some people, they'd see Star Wars and think, how did they do that? And for me, it was Superman because the film had so many different elements that you could learn about. You've got miniatures, matte paintings, opticals, Zoptic system for the flying, and wire work. There's kind of, yeah, that's what, spurs your imagination. And obviously
Mm.
because that film was by that point 20 years old, so there's a couple of books you could find that had coverage of visual and special effects that gave you a little bit of a bit of insight into these things. And there was an amazing making of book on Superman published around the time the film came out, which is still a really impressive read. So when I got into sixth form, it was a bunch of things you'd learn. Would be video editing, which is the analog days with or Super VHS, and doing radio, doing storyboards, producing all these kind of things, all rolled into one. And once I'd finished that, I got a job at a video game store, and I kind of stuck with that for like about 4 years, until a cinema had opened up um, in Cambridge where I lived. Which was called
That'll be
Cineworld.
Cineworld. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Cineworld. Yeah. So I was there for about 7 years as a projectionist. I really wanted to be a projectionist. That was the thing I wanted to do because I'd seen things like Last Action Hero, where you see the projection room. That was movie magic, and Cinema Paradiso. That was it. But obviously, when you go into a modern projection room, it's quite sterile, and you've got like 8, 9 projectors to deal with. And but it was fun. It was really enjoyable. But the things for 7 years was a pretty good, longest job I had at that point. And because I finished doing media studies and then going on to video games shop and then a cinema. During that time, we had the release of DVD, and DVD gave you all that window into like how a movie was made. And at the time, DVD was expensive. You're probably fully aware of that. Maybe 1998, 99 to 2000, a DVD player was quite expensive,
Yeah.
and a lot of people were getting rid of their laserdisc players to move on to DVD. Laserdisc, obviously, the format before DVD, which gave you widescreen movies, DTS surround sound, Dolby Digital surround sound, special features, commentaries. The Criterion Collection was very much the thing on that format, and a lot of the titles they put on the Laserdisc format under Criterion are still kind of those titles I would probably like to see more of on Blu-ray and 4K Blu-ray, but they've become a little bit more kind of art house now. Um, but I became obsessed with how these most movies were kind of made, and I liked seeing behind the scenes stuff. I love hearing commentaries, and got into the world of DVD. And then during that time as a projectionist, and they made that shift to digital projection, there was no longer a need for a projectionist. So it was all
Yeah.
kind of automated. And so I was kind of made redundant and didn't know really what I wanted to do. But I was watching a lot of YouTube, like many people were, and there was nostalgia nerd reviewing kind of movies, but kind of taking the piss out of these films done for comedic purposes. And there were some other people floating around that were reviewing films in a kind of a more serious manner. And I was watching these retrospectives produced by GameTrailers.com. They may still be around, I don't know, but they did a series on Resident Evil. And I thought they were really, really interesting and informative. And I thought to myself, well, no one's really doing anything kind of educational on YouTube with movies. So I thought, well, we'll just take a film and just kind of discuss its success at the time, modern how critics reacted to it, give my review, and add a bit about special effects and the soundtrack, and if there was any video games made, which no one really seemed to do, or don't really do now, where they really kind of explore the soundtrack and the special effects and there was video games made. So I try to think of that as a whole package to offer people. And I reviewed Superman 4, which was by most people would say it's not a very good film, the weakest of the Superman films, but it was something interesting about it. Its production background I always find fascinating, very much like Alien 3 or Highlander 2. So that was I produced a video on Superman 4, and I shared it with other Superman fans on forums and stuff, when people would use forums a lot more regularly than I think forums now have kind of moved to things like Reddit and
Yeah.
things like that,
Discord,
or
stuff like that.
exactly, or like
Yeah.
Facebook groups and things like that. So it's kind of shifted. Um, but people enjoyed it, and they encouraged me to do more. And I started doing one kind of like once a week or every other week, and picking movies I really wanted to do, things out of order. Like I'll review RoboCop 3 before I'd even discuss RoboCop 1 and 2, because it was just something I wanted to get off my chest and say. And think if I go back and watch those old videos, they're not very good. They're very bad. But it was at the time, things in terms of the quality was very different back then. And this is now 14 years ago. And I didn't start taking it seriously as like, oh, I could potentially do this as a career, quotation marks, to about 2013, 2014. So there was a lot of like 3 years of just like hard work and not earning any money out of it, and just kind of enjoying it because it's a hobby. And YouTube should always, your mindset should be, it is a hobby at first. And if you're lucky and it becomes a career, then that's brilliant. But if you go into it thinking I'm just going to make money and do all this and do that and be successful, it's kind of like you're going to put yourself in the deep end and probably
Mm.
end up disappointed. Um, so yeah, that sort of started the ball rolling, and since then I've been very lucky to be in a position I am, to going from don't know what to do with my life after being a projectionist and suddenly making videos. But it's been a slow burn though. It's not, nothing happened overnight. Nothing I'd produce has gone viral. It's always just like it's ticking up slowly all the way, which is kind of fine. So you just have to sort of your expectations and work within that. But it's all happened with, in terms of editing, it's all trial and error. You sort of learn along the way, and I've got, not to blow my own trumpet, I've got a lot better over the years, and since I first started, and that's how you do it. You just learn as you go.
Something I always say to my kids, we don't say practice makes perfect in this house. We say practice makes progress. If you keep doing the
Mm,
thing that you're doing, you're going to progress, and you're going to progress, and you're going to, hit a stage where you kind of like find your flow, you find your voice, and as you have with where you at now with your retrospective reviews and such. It's funny. Superman 4. First Superman movie I ever watched, Superman 4. Guess what's on TV right now in Australia? Right now,
Superman
just
4.
before Superman 4. I
Amazing.
shit you not. I was over there just watching it. It was on the scene where the little kid, was asking Superman about the nuclear bombs or something, and the headline say Superman tells a kid to drop dead or whatever it was. It was like that scene. And I was like, okay, I gotta go talk to Oliver now. It's funny because I was thinking, I know you did a bunch on that film, so it was funny. Hi guys, Matt here from Matt's Movie Reviews, letting you know that the Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel has launched channel membership. This provides exclusive videos and other cool stuff as well for all channel members. It's under one tier, one price, and with that one price you get exclusive reviews. For example, I'll be going through the American Film Institute's top 100 movies. So every week I'll do a new review based on that movie list. You can get exclusive reviews based on your requests. Request a movie review and I will review it for you. You'll also get exclusive content for behind the scenes stuff as well. You also get exclusive interviews that I haven't posted yet as part of my podcast, like older interviews with Academy Award winners and other great filmmakers and actors as well, and a bunch of other cool stuff as well. I hope you can all join up, be part of this great experience I have on offer for you. Support indie content creators, support a movie critic like myself who is trying to make it through the content creator space. Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel memberships. Please join and get some great exclusive content. I want to move on to this game I like to play with my guests. It's called Choose Between Two. So, Oliver, I'm going to
Sure.
give you a choice between two. You choose one. You just talk a bit on it if you want to. Are you ready to play?
Okay. Yeah,
All right,
sure. Go for it.
here we go. First one, Battle of the Martial Arts Action Superstars. Jean-Claude Van Damme or Dolph Lundgren?
Oh, okay. I'd probably say Van Damme. Yeah, he's done more kind of martial arts movies and better action films.
Hmm.
I do love Dolph Lundgren, but Van Damme's been more consistent with his output. Especially thing going from like Bloodsport to sort of sudden death. There's this kind of nice wide spectrum of kind of action movies where Dolph had kind of started out quite high with Rocky, and you sort of kind of see this kind of downwards kind of spiral, then goes up with Universal Soldier, and then sort of things tick along. But I love Dolph, very cool guy, but Van Damme for me.
Dolph always, to me, always seems like an actor that was born kind of like it's hard. It's weird to say this because he was such a big star in the late '80s and throughout the '90s. But if he started like maybe 10 years ago, and he was
Mm.
doing Master and Universe and Punisher during the time where the technology could have kept up with it, that would have been such huge hits. But unfortunately, his versions of those films were more kind of like seen as the lesser than compared to other versions. But he's kind of like the
Yeah.
first guy to really stepped into a lot of those kind of spaces.
Well, the funny thing is, with the Punisher, they've made so many Punisher films, but I think a lot of people, when they sort of watch them all in a row, if they were going to, there's still a lot of interesting stuff in the Dolph Lundgren one, despite him
I'm
not
pretty
having
sure, yeah,
the skull
yeah.
thing on his chest and stuff.
And I'm pretty sure they filmed that in Australia as well. It might have been Queensland.
They
I'm not
did.
100%.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
did, yeah.
yeah.
Next one. So this is the battle of the action movie villains.
Mm.
I might get pronunciations wrong, so you can correct me if you want to. Bolo Young from Bloodsport and Double Impact, or Matthias Hughes from No Retreat, No Surrender 2 and Dark Angel.
It's Matthias Hughes, mate. I know Matthias, lovely guy. It's weird, like with all with Hollywood, people that play villains on a regular basis in real life, they are super nice and friendly.
Hmm.
And yeah, Matthias for me, he is ginormous as well. So, and he has, he gets more lines of things to say. But I must say, Bolo is probably more menacing.
Yeah, I think so too.
Especially in Double Impact, where
Hmm.
he's kind of blinded, isn't he, in one eye and stuff.
Yeah.
And but yeah, Matthias for me because of his height and just like presence on screen.
Next one. All right, let's just say we're in the fictional land of the movies, kind of like Last Action Hero, fictional land of movies. You can choose to go to fight night, one fight night. It's either the Battle of East versus West, Balboa versus Drago in Russia, or the last day of the Kumite in Bloodsport, which ends up with Frank Du versus Chun-Li. Which one did you want to go with?
Oh my God. Um, I don't know. I'd probably go with the Rocky one. Rocky,
Mm.
yeah, the fight, yeah, because that's just it's so intense, and Stallone, makes the Soviet Union, the communist Russia kind of support him, and I mean that's just impressive to me. So yeah, Rocky Four.
Not only that, you see the end of the Cold War as well in the boxing ring.
Exactly. Ended it
Rocky
with
brought
ended
down
it
the
with a
wall.
punch.
That's right. Yeah. All right. I'm pretty much. I think I know the answer to this one. CGI or practical? What effects would you rather see in a movie?
Oh, practical all the way
Yeah,
because
me
it
too.
stands the test of time. It doesn't date.
Very true. What would you rather watch at home, physical media or streaming?
Um, Definitely physical media because that's my whole bag. I've got Laserdisc, DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K Blu-ray. Streaming's always quite handy if you're watching a TV show. I think,
Hmm.
if when Seinfeld came on Netflix, I was like, oh, thank God. I don't have to go through all my DVDs. After a few episodes, you've got to change disc. And now they've brought it out in 4K. I was like, oh, I do really want that 4K, but it's quite expensive.
I don't know if
Um,
Seinfeld needs to be seen in 4K, though. I don't think we need to see, Elaine's hair and Kramer's
um,
tweed suits in high definition.
Well, it was all shot on film, wasn't it? So it
Yeah,
will look
yeah.
amazing, but it's like, yeah. I The other day I said to myself, "Oh, let's watch this movie," and you go onto your phone to double check what platform it's on and which ones you're subscribed to.
Oh God, yeah.
And it wasn't on any of them. You can only buy it from like Amazon Prime. You couldn't, it wasn't given away free with Amazon Prime. You had to pay for it or rent it. I was like, oh, I thought, well, I have to go drag out the old DVD, which I don't like watching DVDs that much anymore. If I see it in HD or 4K, then I will go for that. And there's no point. You've got this massive TV that's got 4K display, and you're watching a DVD. It's kind of a bit redundant. Saying that, I watch Laserdisc, but hey ho. But yeah, physical media will always be the best way to go for quality, especially with sound.
Yeah.
Trying to watch a film on a TV or soundbar via streaming is always bad. But if you've got the full speaker set up, it's always more impressive with a physical disc.
Last one with these choose between two. You're at the cinema. What are you snacking on? Popcorn or candy?
Popcorn.
Popcorn.
Um,
What's your favorite popcorn to go for?
it's always be sweet popcorn. Absolutely
Hmm.
love it. I could eat it all day. So I know uh, I don't have the salty popcorn because I have to reduce my salt anyway, for health reasons, as I've got older. So yeah, sweet all the way. I mean, I can't believe in America they don't have sweet. It's just like salted or butter. I
Mm.
just couldn't handle that.
No, me either. Yeah,
Well, so
I
they
like.
have sweet in Australia, right?
Yeah, we have both. You can have both. You have
Yeah.
salt and sweet. We have a very much of a variety of them. The thing with me though, like I usually go for candy now because I've been to so many kind of media screenings and such where they give you free
Mm.
popcorn that the popcorn now isn't as big as a big deal. But when I take my kids with me to some of these screenings and they get free popcorn, it's like, manna from heaven. They absolutely love it. Like it's free and we got it. Oh my God. But that's the movies when you're a kid, man. That's a great thing, right?
Oh, exactly.
Um I want to get back to talk about your YouTube channel and your YouTube journey. So you were talking
Sure.
before about, you're looking at the landscape. You saw there's a void there that you wanna, put your stamp on and you will do your thing. And you were
Yeah.
talking before just now about if you look back at your older films, like you might look at it with a little bit of cringe or what have you, because it's
Mm.
probably not up to the standard you are now. But that's
Mm.
important that you start with those small steps, right? And you do all the things that you do.
Yes.
As you're progressing along and your stuff's getting more popular, and maybe your frequency of videos getting higher, you're getting more requests to do things.
Mm.
What lessons have you learned over the years to try to keep consistent over all this time? Because next year's gonna be like 15 years, right? So consistent all this
Yeah.
time without and I'm sure maybe there are occasions when this has happened, because I know it's happened to me and all types of YouTubers, without reaching the
Mm.
point where sometimes you just reach a certain burnout or maybe a
Mm.
imposter syndrome or what have you, and can
Yes.
just keep on moving ahead and keep doing what you're doing, because it's really for people to last a really long time on YouTube and to be able to do, you know, be consistent with their output without giving up any of the quality of the work or without forgetting what it is that they're doing in the first place and why people like them, I think is a very impressive thing to do. But I'm just curious about how you kind of maintain that professionalism without going crazy at the same time because that can happen to a lot of people.
Yeah, burnout is a real thing. I've had it a couple of times. Generally, burnout comes when um, you take on a project to review a particular movie, and there's so much information, and you need to condense it down to a reasonable length,
Hmm.
and what kind of stays on what goes. Um, Especially for a film with a really complicated production, and that can just like become a bit much, and you just kind of draw blank because there's certain times of the day you're kind of better at writing. Sometimes I can wake up in the morning, have a coffee, decaf, and then start writing straight away, and I kind of like got loads of ideas. I can write things, and sometimes I just like my brain's sluggish, and you have to sort of wait till about 3 in the afternoon to sort of get things going. And I always maintain a 9 till 5 kind of thing. I usually start work at 8 in the morning. I finish around 5 or 6. So that's a lot of hours I put in. But you also, you kind of you're working from home, so you've always got a lot of distractions. People always want to talk to you back and forth.
Yeah.
So you don't go completely insane. And you always try to maintain I don't work in the evening. So having a sort of a normal kind of routine is always kind of helpful to keep yourselves going. If I could have been at a point where if whatever I was putting out just wasn't getting the views anymore, and I knew people weren't interested. I would be realistic about it and go, I have to go out and get a proper job,
Hmm.
or do some more kind of freelancing. But um, the things I kind of learnt along the way is like just to maintain my sanity and to maintain the sort of freshness of the channel is to provide some variety. Not everyone's going to like that variety, because early days it was like I'm just going to focus on retrospectives, but because of they kept getting bigger and complicated, especially with the opening. Because I used to do a trailer at the beginning and the end of a video. I've dropped the trailers at the end now because it's became a bit of a time timing of the schedule of doing things. It became a bit too much because you're creating two trailers, right? So the thing of providing something extra, I started doing audio commentaries, which I first started with Geekvolution. They invited me on their channel to do a commentary to the Superman films, and I thought, oh, I can kind of do this on my channel on a regular basis and get some of my friends involved and go from there. So that sort of became this like extra content. And then I started reviewing new films because people would think, oh, what's your opinion on the new Robocop remake, back in like
Right.
2014. So, or 2030, I can't remember. So that became a regular thing. So to stop you sort of getting bored with doing one type of thing, providing variety was kind of helpful. And it's sort of, you sort of get more subscribers. Some people just subscribe because they want to hear new movie reviews or the commentaries. But most people, 90% of the time, were tuning in because of the retrospectives because they just want to learn about a film. And other things I kind of learned along the way is like, don't always listen to requests because I
Hmm.
get a lot of requests, but it could just be a small number of people making a lot of noise. So, but if you fall for that and go, oh, I'm going to review this movie, and then a large chunk of your followers don't really gel with it or don't really tune into it. So you just sometimes got to go with your gut on what you want to do. I think it's always best to do what you want to do because if you're not passionate about a particular movie, then the audience are kind of going to go, yeah, he's kind of not, he kind of winged this one, or there's not much enthusiasm there. He's kind of just doing it by the numbers, and it becomes more difficult to sort of research and put the effort in because you're not interested in this particular film that much. So I always try and do things that are kind of interest me, and I used to make a list of films that I was going to cover over the next couple of months. I dropped doing a list. I just do a review a film, and then I just think, look at my collection, and go, let's just do that one.
Hmm.
I don't want to, because if you plan ahead too much, you sort of think, oh, I've got to review that film in 2 weeks. I'm not really in the mood to do that now, so it's all to spare the moment. Um, and that's how it kind of went along. And things I know, I'm always pretty consistent with my output. I don't disappear for months at a time. I'm always like every week there should be something out. It may not be a retrospective every week, but it will be me discussing a film or a laserdisc or a 4K release or doing a commentary. So there's always something out there, and I think that consistency has kind of kept people engaged with the channel over past decade. And obviously, because I have gone off to do documentaries outside of YouTube, that has, it does play a part in slowing down your channel because you can't juggle everything. So, and if I hadn't made these documentaries, my channel may be a little bit more popular now because I'd be more consistent with what I put out over the last couple of years. And the last 2 months, I've just been putting stuff out, which I used to do on a regular basis, kind of more, every week there's something, and not like every 2 or 3 weeks.
Mm.
But I never saw YouTube as this like I'm going to stick with YouTube for the rest of my career. You've got to be really realistic about it. You always got to have a plan B. If you don't have a plan B, you're a bit naive and a bit gullible to think that everything's going to last forever. So, making documentaries outside of YouTube to sort of stretch my wings creatively has been really helpful. And I've met some really nice people along the way. And knowing that other filmmakers watch my videos, which kind of encourage you to think, okay, I am doing something right. People are enjoying it. It's not just fanatical movie fans who just want to hear me talk about the same film over and over again. But they kind of, if you've got people in the professional world who enjoy what you do, I think I'm doing the right thing.
When you hit a certain threshold with your YouTube channel, whether it be views or subscriber count or monetary, whatever,
Yes.
what have you, um, do you start looking at it more as a business as opposed to as this really cool project that you're doing? Is there kind of like a trap that can come as well, where you think sometimes you might think, well, this might get me that or that, but not so much the fun aspect of it, but maybe it might give me more monetary gain, maybe it might get me sponsorship, maybe it might get me this thing. Because I think sometimes that's another trap that people can fall in, where the I don't know, let's say the maybe the fiscal advantages, maybe the sponsorship advantages, maybe there's a lot of different things that have come up that might be able to kind of, tweak a little bit with the fun aspect of why we do this stuff in the first place, and then you might find yourself in a situation where, you know, you know, yeah, I'm making some money here, but it's not as fun as it used to be, and now I'm stuck maybe in a
Mm.
sponsorship contract for 6 months with so and so. I mean, that stuff can
Yeah.
happen sometimes. Have you ever found yourself in a situation like that?
Um, I do get offered a lot of sponsorships, but it's very difficult to know if they're legit.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. I don't have an agent that would deal with that sort of thing. And when some do come through, which are really interesting, I was asked to promote a projector, really fancy state of the art home cinema projector, but I don't have the space anymore. I couldn't
Hmm.
justify taking it off their hands and doing a basic review to sort of say, hey, to get something for free. So I've never done a sponsorship on my channel. I've promoted other people's products, but they're always were never based on me being paid to show that product. It's always you get something through like an affiliate link, right?
Right. Yeah.
So whoever clicks on the right, okay. Um, so in terms of covering something which I would maybe not in, okay, for example, if I wanted to do a video which I know would probably get a lot of interest and clicks, I've always got those in my back pocket if I was somewhat concerned with the state of my channel. For example, I would probably, you could pull out the Phantom Menace to review, even
Right.
though it's been talked to death,
Exactly.
people still have a massive interest in episode one. And I've only done those. I did the original trilogy a long time ago, around the time like Force Awakens was coming out, and I did do the prequels as my sort of spin-off show, Genre Drone, which I do with Rob Hill, the Bad Movie
Okay.
Bible, and Stuart Ashton on the side. So there's always something I could do to sort of I know would make a bit of money, but again, it's like you can't do that um, as a rushed thing. You'd have to put the time and effort in. And I always try to make sure everything I put out is time's been thought. No, time has been put into it. I've thought about it really carefully, and I've not rushed it. And I want to provide people with something that's impressive in terms of its presentation and how it's edited. So yeah, as a there's always something I could do to sort of boost numbers, in a short term. But I'm always thinking about, like for example, I'm just putting together my review on Supergirl,
Hmm.
um, which I had reviewed very early on in my YouTube career, which then got blocked by Warner Brothers because I was showing clips a bit too long, and I only reviewed the Blu-ray from maybe 8 years ago or something like that. So this is a big project, and with the new Supergirl film coming out next year, you could time things up to make things kind of work in your favor. For example, I reviewed um, First Blood kind of rough, maybe about 6 months before perhaps the Rambo 5 had came out.
Last
And
Blood, yeah.
then the last pod. So people were searching for Rambo, and then they'd find the old retrospective on First Blood, and that went through the roof. So there's always covering films that are going to have a sequel or a remake are always quite helpful in the long term. And it's always the same thing. Another Alien film comes out, people will go watch a review on the old Alien films, and the same with Star Wars, Superman, etc. So there's always something there people would will go back to. And I know if I repeat, for example, Supergirl next year, you'll probably see a big upspurt on views on that video because people are just naturally looking for stuff on Supergirl and think, oh yeah, there was a film from 30 plus years ago. I should go check that out.
Mm, definitely. The Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you love. Um, I want to move on to another game I like to play. It's called Rapid Fire Questions. I'm just going to throw some questions to you. First
Hmm.
thing pops up, blurt it out. If you want to talk about it more, feel free to do so. All right.
Sure.
So I'm going to hear your first one here. Do you have a favorite documentary that's about like a particular making of a movie? Kind of like what you do with your retrospectives and your own documentaries. Have you seen other people do it as well? And is there a certain documentary that kind of sticks out to you as something that's been done really well in the feature film documentary format?
I'd probably say the one produced for Alien 3
Mm.
for the Blu-ray. That's actually for the original DVD. Then it was kind of extended on Blu-ray. I don't remember the name of it. I just know it's it's the making of Alien 3. That's one I've gone back to so many times.
Next one. What's your favorite fight scene in an 80s action movie?
80s action movie. Favorite fight scene. Oh, that's a tough one. I'd probably say I'll probably say Police Story.
Nice.
We have a fight in the mall at the end. He's just
Hmm.
smashing through all the glass and stuff. It's really impressive.
You know what? Which one I think is underrated? Chuck Norris versus David Carradine in Lone Wolf McQuade. Was absolutely. I love that
I've got a
movie.
mate called Michael Peristeris. He's from Australia, and
Hmm.
yeah, he loves that. He loves that movie.
It was a big. It
It's
was it was a big hit down here. I mean, a lot of Aussies love that
yeah,
film. I love
yeah,
that
it's
film.
probably why.
Do you have a favorite score in the movie? Favorite composition score?
It would always be Superman the movie by John Williams.
Hmm.
You know,
Perfect.
it still works.
Who's your favorite actor that has played James Bond?
Oh, okay. See, I grew up with Roger Moore,
Hmm.
and I love Roger Moore as 007, but I just love the sort of hard-edged version by Timothy Dalton. I
Oh,
just
nice.
love
Okay.
the sort of that look he gives. He's like um, he just encapsulate what I would perceive Bond to be. I mean, if there was a comic book, let's say James Bond was a comic book character, he'd probably look like Pierce Brosnan.
Mm.
But to me, Timothy Dalton was kind of the hard edged one, and he took it seriously. But Roger Moore has he's so charming as Bond, and there's some really good films. But yeah, I think Timothy Dalton for me, just to be a bit slightly niche.
Mine's Connery. It's always been Connery, but a close second
Mm,
is Pierce Brosnan because I think like the first time I started watching, like I always saw Roger Moore films kind of like they were kind of like in the background because I was growing up. I wasn't really kind of
yeah.
used to him because the character of Jaws always scared the shit out of me. I used to have nightmares about him.
Mm, don't
Um,
blame you.
yeah, freaky. But like films like what's it called? Tomorrow never what's it called again? Tomorrow Never Comes, Tomorrow Never Dies. I
Tomorrow never
forgot which one it
dies.
was. Never Dies. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that was the first one I saw in a cinema.
Mm.
Of course, because Terry Hatcher was in it too. I had to see it. So, Lois and Clark was big in that time. So,
He
yeah,
was, yeah, yeah. It was a
yeah,
big deal for her to be in that movie. But
it
she only had
was, it
like what,
was
10 minutes, didn't she? Something like that.
a, beau-
Small role.
a beautiful 10 minutes, I got to say. Um, Last one, and this is the most important question I'm going to ask you today. So there's a lot riding on this one.
Hmm.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No, don't like
Thank
it.
you, thank you. See, you and I have so much in common. Like a lot of things you're talking about, and like a lot, like even like the how you used to watch films, like VHS, everything, action figures, all
Hmm.
that stuff. Same as me. And I was thinking to myself in the back of my head, if this guy likes pineapple on his pizza, I'm gonna be crushed. I really am. So thank you. That's all I got to say. Because I've been getting a lot of yeses lately as well. I think the last
It's mad.
two out of three was yes. So yeah,
Yeah,
it,
no,
it's
no.
I know I can't yeah, I can't do
For me,
this.
it's no vegetables on a pizza or anything like that, or fruit. It's got to be meat,
Meat lovers, yeah, yeah,
all the way.
all the way. Yeah. Okay, so now there's this transition you've had to documentary feature filmmaking. It's really
Yes.
interesting. When I was doing research on you, I was listening to this Q&A you did like 11 years ago. It's like one of the first Q&As you did on the YouTube. It's like went for an hour or so. You answered like 60
Wow.
questions. And someone asked you about, whether you'd be interested in doing documentary filmmaking. And your answer, Dan, was like, it doesn't really interest me. I'm like what I'm doing right now, blah, blah, blah. So clearly was a transition there from somewhere
Yeah,
for you to
yeah.
do like in the I searched for the last action hero. Um, where was that? Do you kind of remember when that kind of transition happened, where you kind of felt more comfortable and maybe jumping into a more traditional filmmaking, research, project,
Yes.
kind of like the ones you're doing now?
Well, actually, it all stemmed from the documentary on Superman 4 I did about the shooting locations. I did with my friend
Hmm.
Tim Partridge, who's now, set up his own YouTube channel and done a couple of videos on Gremlins and Ninja Turtles, and he's got one coming out on Batman Forever very shortly. Me and Tim had decided to think, let's talk about, Milton Keynes being this kind of town in the UK that was used for Superman 4. The documentary was called The Man of Glass and Steel.
Yeah.
And that was about half an hour long. And we did stuff on camera. It wasn't just me doing a voiceover. A voiceover was provided, but it was like we tried to make it as professional as we could, and people were really impressed with it. And that's what kind of led on to In Search of Last Action Heroes, because the producer of that, Robin Block, was like blown away by the Superman 4 video, and he'd been following my YouTube stuff, and he really liked the retrospectives, and said, let's make a documentary. What do you want to make it on? He was kind of like, do whatever. And I said, well, let's do on 80s action films, because that was the most popular thing on my channel. Things
Yeah.
like Predator, Terminator, Robocop, was all those films were doing extremely well. It kind of made sense to do that because, Aliens, Predator, Robocop, and Terminator are always, despite their, the quality may be up and down in some of the films, and they're made a long time ago, people still talk about them all the time.
All the time.
They've kind of have this long-lasting impression of left on everyone. So when you cover something like that, people still tune in. So that was kind of the genesis of it all. So okay, let's do this, and then we did it with had to raise money through Kickstarter, which I'd never done before. It was completely new to me, and during that process, I was introduced to Timon Singh, who wrote a book called Born to Be Bad, and he had interviewed a lot of people from the industry, people that generally played villains. So that
Mm.
gave you already this kind of easy window to sort of get hold of these people and get them interviewed. And that kind of, you know, got the ball rolling. And we, luckily enough, we raised enough money and appealed to fans of action and managed to get that out. And then once I'd done that, um, I thought, well, what did I want to do next? And Robin had the producer gone off to do the In Search of Darkness stuff and In Search of Tomorrow, all these kind of things, which I personally wasn't that interested in, and I wanted to do something that was kind of personal to me and not just be about let's talk about a bunch of movies again. I sort of that's why I kind of decided to do something on Street Fighter 2, and it's important to me as a teenager, and explore all the versions of the games, the updates, the conversions to all the consoles, all the toys they put out, and the movie. So that was, and no one had done that to a degree. So I sort of was like, oh, well, I could do this now, and that'll be and take on the responsibility of being a producer as well. It's quite challenging, very difficult to do, sort of manage and make sure everyone kind of falls in line to sort of shoot the interviews and make sure things kind of because you also you again crowdfunding and you've got to make sure you update people on what's going on and be realistic with the budget and so forth. And once that was kind of finished, it then Sean David Lowe, who another YouTuber who kind of focused on basketball as a thing, you know, commentating or talking about basketball games from the past. But he had a side channel where he would discuss movies from the 80s. And I think it was a podcast or he was interviewing people. And he said, hey, look, I loved your action documentary. I love your YouTube channel. Let's kind of work together on a project. And that kind of formed The Last Kumite, which was clearly just a throwback movie to Bloodsport. And I
Of
was like,
course.
yeah, I'm up for that. That sounds great, you know. And and because Sean had interviewed a bunch of people already, and they were all like, yeah, let's you know, make a movie that's kind of a throwback film. And I was lucky enough to edit that film. So that then gave me going from YouTube, then on to making documentaries outside of YouTube, and then getting them on Amazon Prime, getting them on all these different platforms, and then editing a feature film that wasn't a documentary was, I was, you know, I have to, as I said earlier, I had to sort of remind myself I'm quite lucky in the position I've been in. I've been very lucky to sort of get these jobs. You know, I'm not going to, you know, to say, oh, I was there at the right time. It's like you have to, you know, I've got a body of work already there, you know, for people to observe and go, okay, I think you can do this. And it was, yeah, again, it was very daunting editing an, you know, an entire feature film. It's very time consuming because you've got loads of takes to go through and trying to assemble fight scenes, which you've never done before. But things kind of naturally came together. And I worked with a fight choreographer who'd kind of done pre-viz kind of edits of stuff. So just copy that, Oliver. And okay, and just made a few adjustments how I'd want to do things. But yeah, it was pretty crazy, you know. And that, you know, Last Kumite then led on to the documentary on No Retreat, No Surrender.
Which I'm so excited for. The Untold Story of No Retreat, No Surrender. That's a movie, kind of like, you know, so you've had all your bloods, like you had like at the time, I remember clearly watching the movie for the first time because it was just such an outlier. Even though Jean-Claude Van Damme was in the movie, it wasn't
Mm,
necessarily a Jean-Claude Van Damme film because number one, he was playing the villain, which when I saw it, I was
yeah.
like, holy crap, like when's he ever been a bad guy? Like, and he's probably only done it once again in Expendables 2. I think those are only two times he's probably played a bad guy. I don't remember
Oh
any other
no,
time.
he was in Black Eagle.
Ah, right,
He
okay.
plays a villain. That's a shit film.
Um, but it was such a great film because it was just kind of batshit crazy as well because you know Bruce Lee comes back as a vision and he's
Mm,
teaching this guy martial arts and I think at the time the Kurt McKinley character in the movie I think a lot of people kind of he wasn't an action hero in the form of like, you know, your Lundgrens and Van Dams. It's more like an action hero in the form of a Ralph Macchio. But this time, like
mm,
his sensei wasn't, you know, Pat Morita. It was like, you know, someone playing Bruce Lee, which is just brings another whole aspect to it. Great montage, so many great moments in that film. Um, when it came to doing that movie though, so No Retreat,
yeah.
No Surrender, was that a thing again where you were just kind of like it was more like a lot of from what I'm getting from you when you're doing your when you choose to do your retrospective, it comes out like from more from the gut, then it's more less analytical, more feeling. Is that the
Yes.
same thing in regards to No Retreat, No Surrender? It's like more feelings, like you know, I really like this movie. I think we can do something cool with this movie,
Mm,
and I think like you know that I'll love to put my time into this film too because you know, yet at the end of the day, it's your time, it's your effort. You know, you're you know putting your you know all of you into this kind of thing. But
yes.
yeah, I'd love to hear how like that came kind of like the film that you put your focus on for this new project.
Um, okay. So in this scenario, I was kind of more of a gun for hire
Hmm.
for this one because I had seen No Retreat, No Surrender when I was younger. But I saw it on VHS, must be 1990 or 91,
Right.
and they'd changed the cover by that point because Van Damme was really popular. So Kurt McKinney was no longer on the cover; it was just Van Damme. So I thought it was a Van Damme film, and I rented it. And went,
Mm.
oh, he's barely in it. He's a bad guy, and it's this guy Jason Stillwell who's the hero, and it's a bit like Karate Kid, you know, with some great kind of montages, great music, very cheesy.
Oh yeah.
Not realizing that it was made by Hong Kong filmmakers, it was just like I thought it was just kind of this cheesy movie from the 1980s, and I enjoyed it for what it was. But I think I maybe had seen it at a slightly older age and wasn't that impressionable anymore on me. If I seen it when I was like 8 or 9 years old, it would have been like, oh my god, this is incredible.
Oh
But I'd already
yeah,
seen Karate Kid
100%.
by that point. I've already
Yeah.
seen Karate Kid by that point, so I was kind of like, well, it's fine, but it's no it's no kickboxer or whatever. So when Sean David Lowe had approached me for this, I obviously knew about it, and Sean had done most of the legwork. He'd done a lot of research because in Germany it's known as Karate Tiger,
Mm.
and it's huge over there. And there was like 10 Karate Tiger films, but they all have nothing to do with No Retreat, No Surrender moving forward after the first one. Bit like the official No Retreat, No Surrender 2 and 3, which have nothing to do with the first film. They're all different,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
by name association, right? So he'd, done a lot of research and just said, look, I've kind of want to. He wanted to do a book at first, and he'd written this book, um, and but he wanted to make a documentary because I'd already done these other two, and I thought, well, this can work. The things that interest me about it was one, the use of Hong Kong filmmakers with Western filmmakers, right? That's a really interesting angle. Other interesting angle is the Bruce exploitation stuff because you got the ghost of Bruce Lee. The guy who
Yeah.
played Bruce Lee in it was also in Game of Death 2, and he played Bruce Lee again in something else. I can't remember now, off the top of my head. Also, that you got the mix of kind of from the origins of this, how the documentary kind of plays out is Hong Kong cinema. So there is a bit on we have on Bruce Lee naturally. So all that stuff kind of interests me, and where they'd made sequels which had nothing to do with the first film. That again really interested me. Not so really much about the making of the film because all the ingredients around it I found fascinating. It's just naturally the making of would come into play and you'd find some interesting stories out of it. And we really did. And that kind of got me more interested as we went along. Not initially. Initially, it was just like, Bruce exploitation, Hong Kong cinema. Let's just do that. Because I'd, discussed, Enter the Dragon, some Jackie Chan films on my channel. I had all the Hong Kong legend kind of DVDs, listened to the commentaries by Bay Logan. I collected Impact magazine during the 90s, and I started buying back issues now. So I was fully engaged with that genre, but it wasn't necessarily that No Retreat was my bag. Wasn't my interest that much. But Sean, enthusiasm sort of got me on board, and I brought on my friend Christopher Stratton who helped me on Street Fighter. To shoot the interviews, and then he did more interviews along the way, and he sort of, I gave him a co-director credit because we were doing so much together. Um, and we've managed to turn it around. We started shooting it over a year ago, and we've already got it all finished, and it's ready to come out early of next year. It's a very quick turnaround, and a lot of stuff in there. We haven't done before in my previous documentaries. As Street Fighter had a lot of B-roll, we did very specific about that. I don't want us to do talking head, clip from a movie or clip from a game, and then that's it. I like to have, you're going to see more beyond that. You're going to, like most documentaries should be, or most
Right.
have been naturally for years, where you're seeing location stuff, you're seeing products on screen, you're seeing things interact with stuff. So with this, we had a lot more shooting location stuff. We had Kurt McKinney at Bruce Lee's grave, returning to it. So a lot of, bespoke original stuff in there. And that kind of like elevates it above the previous one in terms of execution and presentation. So each one I make, it's always going to be like, what can we do next that's going to make it look even better? You know what I mean? But you're still working with a very limited budget in these sort of things. And that's the kind of thing when we did this as a crowd fund, because we initially thought, well, most people in Germany will probably like buy into this. And they did, but German fans were like, oh, desperate to see this be made. But I suppose we didn't have the marketing muscle to sort of get it beyond further. Because most people, when you start talking about No Retreat, if you're a certain age, you'll know what it is.
Oh
But
yeah.
if you're younger, you'd be like, what the hell is this? When you if you see clips of it, it seems very cheesy and silly. And my co-director Chris hadn't seen it. He grew up with Van Damme films. It's the one film he hadn't seen, and so we're just like, yeah, you can watch it on YouTube. It's mad, isn't it? This film that people are desperate to buy on Blu-ray, which is now out of print. You can watch it for
Right.
free on YouTube. It's
Yeah.
there.
Well, everyone out there, get ready to dodge your sandbags and eat your ice creams while you're doing your exercises because it's coming your way. The Untold Story of No Retreat, No Surrender. I recommend everyone go to returnofclassics.com. Put in your pre-order now. Very limited editions of the Blu-ray now available. There's like signed copies. There's all different types of versions out there for you to get.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be a streaming or digital version as well, Oliver, coming out as well.
Yes, we're in a process. We have two cuts of the film. One for streaming, one for Blu-ray. So the Blu-ray is the extended version, which is about an hour and 51 minutes, and then the digital version will be about 90 minutes long. So, as me and the producer are, we are lovers of physical media, so that's the way we want to go. But digital, we had to cut it down to make it appealing for TV broadcast. So they always want things that are shorter running runtime so they can put adverts into it. I don't know, but my friends had the nightmare of making big epic documentaries and have to cut them down to you
Mm.
know 90 minutes, and it's very heartbreaking. But yeah, we had to do that. So, but it doesn't actually. The shorter version doesn't detract any of the quality from the documentary itself. We're very clever about what we trimmed out, and but yeah, I'm very excited to see it come out finally. And there's going to be a premiere in Germany a week before its official release, which I'm excited to go see. Sean, the producer, put the money in and did a German dub.
Mm. Smart.
Germ Germany are very famous for dubbing their movies, and I got into an argument with someone. It was a friendly argument. I was like, "Do you like watch The Simpsons in German?" And they go, "Yeah, it's really good." I'm like, "Yeah, but the English
The
version of
voices.
Simpsons is
Yeah.
so good. Like that's how it made it so successful, right? Why are you watching?" Anyway, I just couldn't fathom, and they watch their Star Wars films all dubbed. I'm like, no, it's like, but I can't. I suppose it's like certain films. They know what Jackie Chan films. Weirdly, I grew up watching him dubbed, and that
Mm.
voice of his, but that was dubbed in like Police Story or City Hunter or Operation Condor. I was so used to that voice, and then when he started speaking English, I was like, oh, doesn't sound like the guy I grew up with. It's a very weird thing, and it's just there. I suppose what you're used to, isn't it? Hearing things dubbed, and but yeah. So that premieres. I think we are trying to, organise a UK screening as well for next year. I think actually around the same time it's released. So might be just something a premiere in Germany, then flying back and do one in the UK. So hopefully I can announce that very soon.
You guys should do a really limited run, maybe like 10 or 20 copies of a VHS as well. That'd be pretty cool as well.
I think that, yeah, there was a discussion about that. I think it would be good to put it out in this kind of VHS style case. I think that's
Mm.
kind of probably more of a realistic thing. Um, but hey, you never know. There may be in future if the producer manages to license it out to a boutique Blu-ray label like Vinegar Syndrome or something like that, and then you may get something kind of extra that's kind of interesting packaging. But it's and I think in Australia you got is it Imprint
We got,
that label.
yeah, Via Vision. Umbrella is really good at their stuff down here as well. They do really great
Umbrella, I
stuff here
got
as
the
well.
Super
Yeah.
Mario Brothers set, which is just like ginormous, right? But there is
Yeah.
that ginormous one from Imprint, the Never-Ending Story book
Yeah.
thing, right?
Yeah.
And then there's one on the Keep, and I saw Never-Ending Story one. I was like, oh, that does look good, but I do not
Mm.
have like 150
Bucks, yeah.
pounds
I know.
for you to sort of splurge on that.
I
I
know.
wish I
It's
did.
sometimes a lot of times with some of these things it comes down to price and space. Where you're gonna put a lot of this
Yeah,
stuff as well, right?
yeah,
So that's
exactly,
always the
mate.
tricky stuff. But yeah, but physical like me, I'm physical all the way. That's why I ordered the and I might order another one because my for my brother's birthday he's in March next year, so I might have get a copy for him as well because we
Nice.
grew up watching this stuff. We beat the shit out of each other after watching these movies. and like trying to do these kicks and everything else and doing the punch sound effects, the good old punch sounds of the 80s movies, which unfortunately can't get anymore. I wish they bring some of these sound effects back. I think so nostalgic, some of this stuff. But yeah, for everyone out there listening, returnofclassics.com. I'm going to have the link for that in the show notes. Also going to have the link for Oliver's YouTube channel, Oliver Harper. Just really simple, Oliver Harper at Oliver Harper. I'm going to have the link down there as well. If you haven't yet checked out his channel, I really, really, really recommend you do so. The retrospectives in here is fantastic. There's commentary as well, and you do stuff also on kind of like video games as well and other stuff. You've really
Mm.
kind of expanded your reach on a lot of stuff. But for me, it always comes back to the movies because a lot of the movies you have here kind of like speaks to my taste in if, for whoever likes my watches my stuff shares my taste as well. So I hope they'll get into that stuff too. And all of those, got to say, man, thank you so very much for your time. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. It really has been, and it's really I find it when I talk to YouTubers such as yourself who kind of have expanded their kind of their talents and their reach to do other things. I find it very inspirational as myself because it's something I want to do a little bit as well, maybe in the future, maybe get into some different things. So congrats to you for that, and thank you for your time and thank you for all your hard work you put into your videos. It's been a pleasure to talk to you today.
Oh, thank you very much, Matthew, and it's been a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.